Hey guys, Dave Freeman with Carolina Classic Dragons along with Mike George, and we're coming to you. This is our third episode in the series of Pagoda Vision series on YouTube. And for this series, we decided we were going to talk about nutrition. There are so many different schools of thoughts out there and opinions. Unfortunately, not a lot of it based on research. So what we're going to be presenting to you today is really our opinions. A lot of it's based on facts and experience. And we're going to present to you what we do and what we believe, and then we're going to let you, go from there and do what you think is best for your bearded dragons. We also want to thank RepCal for sponsoring the video. We've used their products for a number of years now, and we were excited that they were able to send us some product to use tonight to show you guys. All right, guys, one of the things that we want to do tonight is go over a lot of terms that we want you to have a good understanding and knowledge of. And all these terms relate to the nutrition for your bearded dragon. One of the things we want to start with and talk about is calcium. This mineral is very important to your bearded dragon's health. A lot of people think calcium, they think just bone structure. You hear about metabolic bone disease. What's important to know about calcium is that it plays a lot of different roles, neuromuscular functions. So obviously it's very important to get your calcium. It's found in a lot of the foods that we feed, but you're going to have to supplement calcium. One of the things people always ask us is, well, should we use calcium with D3 or without D3? And one of the things we've also talked a lot about is how Mike and I both dive into the research papers out there. We try to find as much as we can. One of the things that Mike was able to find recently was a paper that was published in the Comparative Biochemistry and Physiology publication in 2010. So this is really recent research. And it basically concludes that bearded dragons get more D3 through UVB light than they do through supplementation. So our approach is, well, if that's the case, we can't OD on this stuff. So let's go ahead and use the calcium with D3 and in combination with this through the digestive system and the UVB lights that we use on all of our bearded dragons. We're making sure that our dragons are getting the D3 they need. So again, vitamin D3, you got to have it to metabolize calcium. All right, so we're talking about calcium and we're talking about the vitamin D3. All right, you're getting it right there in the RepCal product. And another term that we really wanted to go into detail about is protein. And this is a subject that a lot of people, when you start diving into the papers, a lot of contradicting information out there. And we're going to go into some reasons on what is the differing opinions on this. And Mike's going to talk a little bit about the differences in protein. You have you've got your animal protein and your plant protein. You want to go into some details on the differences between the two?
All right, guys, we're going to start talking about animal protein. So pretty much animal protein is going to be made up of your feeder insects, such as your crickets, your dubia, and your superworms, hornworms, all of those. And pretty much what an animal protein is a complete protein. And what complete protein actually means is that you're getting all of your 20 amino acids. That means the main part of that is you're getting all of your essential amino acids. Your essential amino acids are the ones your body actually can't make itself, and they need to be supplemented throughout the day into your dragon's diet. And your next type of protein is going to be your plant protein, obviously comprised of your certain veggies. You have the wheatgrass over here and your fruits as well. So pretty much this type of protein is actually going to be an incomplete protein. Incomplete protein just means that you're missing one or more of the essential amino acids.
So one of the important things to consider in what we've seen here at Carolina Classic Dragons is how much animal protein do you feed, how much plant protein do you feed. We are coming to the conclusion ourselves that everybody's feeding too much animal protein in the diet. It's hard for these bearded dragons to break down a lot of these proteins. It creates a lot of byproducts such as uric acid. We're hearing more and more about dragons coming down with gout. We're hearing about kidney issues. We're hearing about liver issues.
And there's a good example of that is actually Spike. We're actually our namesake here at CCD. Spike actually passed last season due to renal failure and actually had tumors forming on his liver. That dragon was the king of CCD and was taken care of.
Yeah, and looking back, I mean, we really believe that what we did was we fed too much animal protein. And we've come to this conclusion again. There's a lot of sources out there. We've read a lot of papers. And so what we're going to present to you tonight is kind of like our schedule on how we feed our juveniles, and then now how we've been feeding our adult dragons. So we've talked about the differences between the animal protein and the plant protein. And one of the things, like I said, we continue to see an increase in issues. And with the animal protein and the buildup of the byproducts like uric acid and the gout, think about it, all of that is amplified because what we feel are underhydrated dragons. Okay, we see it, we're seeing it on the rise. So we want to stress, when we talk about nutrition in bearded dragons, we want to stress hydration. One of the things that we do at the shop, we're going to talk about a few different things. Obviously, if you're feeding a lot of plant protein, they're getting the hydration from the veggies. A lot of the things we do here, we mist the dragons directly. We soak our dragons. We mist the veggies. You really can't overhydrate. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have your dragon in a high humidity area, but hydration is important, and I think that when you look at how the hydration, the role it plays with the proteins that we're feeding today, I think that if we all concentrate on feeding lower amounts of animal protein and increase the hydration, I think we're all going to have healthier dragons for it.
You know, I really think that myth comes from that these animals are from Australia and they have come from a desert-like environment, so people think that hydration is not a very big, important issue for these dragons, when actually it is very essential to their well-being.
Absolutely, and I think another thing that's important to ask ourselves as we continue to try to find better ways of taking care of our bearded dragons is, do we overfeed? Absolutely we overfeed. I mean, we've got a lot of obese dragons out there, and again, this is our opinion. There's breeders out there that like to breed and have these 700-800 gram dragons. We've done the research. We know that bearded dragons are opportunistic feeders. Okay, they're not sitting out, in Australia and being fed 3 or 4 dozen crickets a day, right? Like what we're doing in captivity. They're not getting the amount of food that we're feeding. So that's why when we roll out our schedule, you're going to see that we do things a little bit differently here.
And now we're going to start talking about feeding dragons that are defined as juvenile, which is actually from 6 weeks old to 1 year of age. As you can see on the table here, we do have a wide variety of diet that you can feed your dragons. Here at CCD, one of the things that sets us apart from some of your other bearded dragon breeders is we actually start feeding our dragons. Here you go. We start feeding our dragons the repcal pellets pretty much as soon as they start eating their crickets. About 2 to 3 days right out of the egg. And they normally start taking this very readily. It's a great product, and as far as I know we talked about the animal protein, the difference from what you should feed your juveniles and your adults. You can see here right in the back of the label, it's clear as day. Your crude protein for the juvenile is actually 29%, versus you have here on the adults, it's actually 24%. And this really just ties back into, the amount of protein that, you're feeding the different age group dragons. So, like I already said, you want to at least try to feed your dragon the pellets once a day. You want to try to feed veggies once a day, and then you also want to feed animal protein, which, can be crickets, dubia, depending on the size of the dragon, superworms, and you can also, if you want to invest in something, some hornworms as well. We really stress variety here at CCD. It really just diversifies their diet and, really keeps your dragon guessing.
And on that note, just like you want a variety in the animal protein, you want the same in your plant proteins. Okay, so think outside the box a little bit. We've got some spring mix down here.
With no spinach.
We've got wheatgrass. We feed clover. We feed dandelion. So think about hibiscus leaves is also a great animal plant protein for you.
You can get collard, mustards,
collard greens,
and
turnip greens. So for your juveniles, variety on the animal protein, variety on the plant protein.
And now we're going to move into feeding your adult bearded dragon. Obviously, you want to switch from your juvenile bearded dragon pellets to your adult bearded dragon pellets. Again, decrease the amount of protein. Here at CCD, we will actually have a feeding schedule of feeding animal protein twice a week, plant protein every day, and when you're not, on the days you're not feeding the animal protein, you do actually want to feed your dragons the pelleted diet on those days, as well as, the complementing the animal protein as well. And actually, something we we're trying out something a little bit different. We actually do let our bearded dragons midway through the week take off a day of feeding completely, and just let them relax. And guys, don't forget, when you are feeding your animal protein, make sure you are still doing, just like in your juvenile bearded dragons, doing the Herptivite once a week, as well as doing the dusted calcium on your crickets.
So guys, basically in summary, we've covered a lot of different topics today, and we've talked about this before, that this is such an evolving hobby. We've presented to you some ideas, some things that you may not have been familiar with, the differences between the animal proteins and plant proteins. We really strongly believe that we're going down a path in our hobby right now of too much animal protein, not enough plant protein. We've got a lot of overweight bearded dragons out there, and these animals are opportunistic feeders, and they're not eating dozens of crickets every day in the wild. So I think if we all concentrate on backing off the animal proteins a little bit more, increasing the plant proteins, our bearded dragons are going to live longer, healthier lives. So guys, in conclusion, we brought out a couple of our Burmese pythons here. This is a hypomelanistic berm, an albino berm, and we got a berm curled up on the cages behind us. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we look forward to the next episode, which is going to be all about health for your bearded dragons. So thanks for sticking with us here at Pagoda Vision.